The Great Hall of Harmony Prime was filled with light. Thousands of small crystal lamps floated near the ceiling, casting soft shadows on the delegates below. Representatives from 12 species sat in a wide circle, their chairs made to fit their different bodies. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had skin that changed color with their moods. They had gathered here for 100 cycles, always talking, always debating, always finding ways to avoid real action. Ambassador Tellus of the Iron Dominion stood at the center podium. His tall gray body was wrapped in ceremonial robes, and his 4 eyes blinked slowly as he spoke. His voice was calm, the voice of someone who had already accepted defeat. "The Void Collective has taken 3 more systems in the Outer Rim," he said. "The Kel people are gone. 7 billion lives absorbed into the swarm. We must accept the truth that stands before us." Murmurs spread through the hall. The Drim delegate, a small creature covered in blue feathers, shook her head sadly. The Tau representative, whose body was made mostly of living crystal, dimmed his inner light in mourning. Telos continued. "Our military experts have studied the collective for 200 years. Every attack against them has failed. Every weapon we have built has proven useless. They adapt. They grow. They consume." He paused and let his words sink in. "Therefore, this council proposes that we send a tribute delegation to the collective. We will offer resources, technology, and territory in exchange for peace." "You mean surrender?" said the Drim delegate quietly. "I mean survival," Tellus replied. No one argued. The vote was held. 12 species raised their hands or tentacles or other limbs in agreement. The galaxy would bow to the Void Collective. It was decided. Then the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed across the ceiling. The floating crystal lamps scattered in panic, their gentle glow replaced by harsh emergency beams. Security officers rushed into the hall, their weapons drawn. Ambassador Tellus gripped the podium, his gray skin turning pale. "What is happening?" he demanded. A young Iron officer ran to his side, her voice shaking. "Ambassador, a ship has appeared. It dropped out of light speed directly into council space. Impossible. The defense grid would have stopped it. The grid did not detect it until it was already here." Telos felt cold fear spread through his body. The Void Collective. They had come. The tribute offer was too late. "Show me," he ordered. The great hall's ceiling transformed into a massive display screen. Stars appeared, and among them floated a ship unlike anything the council had ever seen. It was not organic like collective vessels. It was not elegant like iron cruisers. It was brutal. Sharp angles. Heavy armor. Weapons that looked like they were designed by someone who had thought very carefully about how to kill. The ship was black with gold markings along its side. Words were written there in a language that most delegates did not recognize. But Telos recognized it. He had seen it before, 50 cycles ago, when the council had sent observers to a small blue planet on the edge of known space. "That is a human ship," he whispered. The hall erupted into confusion. Humans. The primitive species that had barely discovered space travel. The young civilization that the council had dismissed as unimportant. How could they build something like this? Before anyone could speak, the communication system activated. A face appeared on the screen, projected so large that every delegate could see clearly. It was a human male, middle-aged, with short dark hair and eyes that held no fear. He wore a black uniform with gold stripes on his shoulders. Behind him stood 2 other humans, a woman with her hair pulled back tight, and a younger man with oil stains on his hands. "I am Admiral Tejo of the United Earth Navy," the human said. His voice was steady and clear. "This vessel is the battleship Dauntless. I am here to deliver a message to the Galactic Council." Tellus found his voice. "Admiral, you have entered protected space without permission. This is a violation of 17 interstellar laws." "You must. I am not here to ask permission," Tejo interrupted. His tone did not change. He was not angry. He was not aggressive. He simply stated facts like someone reading from a report. 15 years ago, a human colony ship called New Dawn was destroyed by the Void Collective. 40,000 of our people were killed. My wife was on that ship. My daughter was on that ship. The hall fell silent. Even the alarms seemed to grow quieter. Tejo continued. We asked the council for help. You told us that humans were not members. You told us that our losses were unfortunate but not your concern. You told us to accept our grief and move on. The woman beside him, Captain Yuna, stepped forward slightly. Her face was hard like stone. We did not move on, she said. We prepared. Young man with oil-stained hands, Chief Engineer Hanzal, tapped a device on his wrist. The image on the screen changed. Behind the Dauntless, more ships appeared. 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 warships, all built with the same brutal efficiency, and carrying weapons that made the Council's finest vessels look like children's toys. Tejo spoke again. The United Earth government has officially declared war on the Void Collective. We will hunt them across every system they have touched. We will destroy every hive ship, every swarm unit, every node of their network. We will not stop until they are gone from this galaxy. Ambassador Telos struggled to find words. Admiral, you cannot possibly hope to defeat the Collective. They have consumed civilizations far older and more powerful than yours. This is madness, Raps Tejo agreed. But we did not come here to ask for your opinion. We came to inform you of our decision. Stay out of our way, and no harm will come to Council space. Interfere with our operations, and we will respond accordingly. The Drim delegate rose from her seat, her blue feathers trembling. You would threaten us. Captain Yuna answered her. We are not threatening you. We are simply telling you the truth. Something your council seems to have forgotten how to do. The communication ended. The human fleet began to move, their ships turning toward the outer rim. Toward the darkness, where the Void Collective waited, in the great hall of Harmony Prime. 12 species sat in stunned silence. For 100 cycles, they had believed they were the masters of the galaxy. They had believed that young species like humans were too. Primitive to matter now, they watched. As those primitive humans flew toward a war that the entire galaxy had been too afraid to fight, Ambassador Tellus sank into his chair. He did not know if the humans would win. He did not know if anyone could win against the Collective. But for the first time in many years, he felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize the feeling. It was hope. 15 years before the Dauntless arrived at Harmony Prime, a young naval officer named Tahoe stood at a window on Earth's largest space station. He watched as the colony ship New Dawn prepared for departure. It was a beautiful vessel, white and silver. It's designed to carry 40,000 people to a new home among the stars. His wife Sua stood beside him, holding their daughter Nari in her arms. Nari was only 4 years old, with round cheeks and bright, curious eyes. She pressed her small hand against the glass, pointing at the ships outside. Daddy, are you coming with us? She asked. Tejo knelt down to her level. His heart ached, but he kept his voice gentle. Not yet, little one. Daddy has to stay here and work, but I will join you soon. I promise. Sua touched his face softly. They had discussed this many times. His military duties kept him on Earth, but in 6 months, he would transfer to the colony. They would be together again. It was only temporary. Take care of yourself, Sua said. We will be waiting for you. He kissed her forehead. He hugged his daughter one last time. He watched them board the shuttle that would take them to the New Dawn. He watched until the great ship disappeared into the blackness of space. That was the last time he saw them alive. News came 3 weeks later. The New Dawn had entered the Outer Rim when the Void Collective found them. The colony ship had no weapons. It had no military escort. It was simply a vessel full of families looking for a better life. The Collective did not care. They swarmed the ship like insects covering a fallen fruit. They tore through the hull. They absorbed everything inside. Metal, technology, people, all of it became part of the swarm. There were no survivors. There were no bodies to recover. 40,000 human beings simply ceased to exist. Tejo received the news in his small office on the space station. He read the report once. He read it again. Then he walked to the window where he had said goodbye to his family. And he stood there without moving for 6 hours. He He did not cry. He did not scream. He simply stood and stared at the stars that had taken everything from him. The Council's response arrived 1 week later. A formal message from Ambassador Telos expressed regret for the human loss. However, the message explained, humans were not members of the Galactic Council. The Void Collective was a threat that required careful diplomacy. The Council could not risk angering the swarm by defending a non-member species. The message ended with a suggestion that Earth should focus on protecting its own territory and avoid provoking dangerous entities. Tejo read that message too. This time, he did not stand silently. This time, something changed inside him. The grief did not disappear. It transformed into something harder, something colder, something that would burn for 15 years. He requested a meeting with Earth's military leadership. He brought data. He brought analysis. He brought a plan so ambitious that most officers thought he had lost his mind. The Council will not protect us, he told them. They have made that clear. So we must protect ourselves. We must become strong enough that no one can ever hurt us again. What are you suggesting? Asked General Park, the oldest officer in the room. War, Tejo replied. Not today. Not tomorrow. But someday. We will build a fleet that can challenge the collective. We will develop weapons they have never seen. We will train soldiers who fear nothing. And when we are ready, we will destroy them. The room was silent. Then General Park laughed, but it was not a mocking laugh. It was the laugh of someone who recognized madness and respected it anyway. How long? He asked. 15 years, Tejo said. Maybe 20. However long it takes. The project began in secret. Earth's governments, for once, agreed on something. They poured resources into hidden shipyards built beneath the oceans. They recruited the brightest scientists and engineers. They studied every piece of alien technology they could find, buying some legally and stealing others through spies. A young engineer named Han Sol joined the project when he was barely 20 years old. He had a gift for understanding how things worked. He could look at an alien device and see its secrets within hours. He spent years taking apart iron engines, drim shields, and Tal power systems. Then, he built something new. Something better. A military academy graduate named Yuna rose quickly through the ranks. She was cold and precise, a perfect officer who never let emotion cloud her judgment. But those who knew her well understood that her coldness was a shield. She had lost her brother on a mining station that the collective destroyed 8 years ago. She fought because fighting was the only way she knew to honor his memory. Hundreds of others joined them. Pilots like Daesung, who trained in simulations so difficult that most candidates failed within minutes. Tacticians like Mireille, who studied the collective's patterns until she could predict their movements. Medical officers like UNBA, who learned to save lives in conditions that would kill most doctors. Intelligence operatives like Bora, who spent years in alien space gathering information. They trained harder than any soldiers in history. They endured pain that other species called torture. They pushed themselves beyond every limit because they knew what waited for them if they failed. And through it all, Tejo watched. He rose from officer to commander to admiral. His hair turned gray. His face grew lined with age and worry, but his eyes never lost their cold fire. He kept a photograph on his desk. Sua smiling in the sunlight. Nari reaching toward the camera with her tiny hands. He looked at that photograph every morning and every night. It reminded him why he worked, why he sacrificed, why he would never stop now. 15 years later, he stood on the bridge of the Dauntless. Captain Yuno was at his side. Engineer Hansel monitored the ship's systems. Lieutenant Jinwoo managed tactical operations. Behind them, through the view screen, the Galactic Council's station grew smaller as the human fleet moved toward the outer rim. Admiral Yuna said quietly, "The Council is sending messages. They demand that we return and submit to their authority." "Ignore them," Tejo replied. "They threaten to declare us criminals. Let them. Their words mean nothing. They meant nothing 15 years ago when my family died. They mean nothing now." The fleet traveled for 3 days. 200 ships moving in perfect formation. Crews performed final checks on weapons and systems. Soldiers reviewed battle plans. Everyone knew what was coming. On the third night, Tejo stood alone in his quarters. He held the photograph of his wife and daughter. His hands trembled slightly. "I am coming," he whispered to the picture. "I am coming to make them pay for what they took from us. I am coming to ensure no one else suffers as we suffered." He placed the photograph back on his desk. He straightened his uniform. He walked to the bridge. "All ships," he announced through the fleet communication system, "prepare for combat. We enter collective space in 6 hours. Remember why we are here. Remember what we fight for. Remember that we are humanity and we do not surrender." Across 200 ships, men and women checked their weapons one final time. The war had begun. The Keth system had been dead for 30 years. Once, it held 3 inhabited planets with billions of people. Now, there was only the swarm. Massive organic structures floated where cities used to stand. Ships, made of consumed matter, drifted through space like sleeping monsters. At the center of it all sat the hive node, a pulsing mass of flesh and metal that connected every collective unit in the system. Admiral Tejo studied the tactical display on the Dauntless Bridge. 30 human warships had separated from the main fleet for this mission. It was not the full force, but it was enough. It had to be enough. "Mireille," he said, turning to his chief strategist, "explain the plan one more time for the crew." Mireille stepped forward. She was a thin woman with sharp eyes and a voice that never wavered. She had spent 10 years studying the collective, learning their patterns, searching for weaknesses that everyone else said did not exist. "The collective operates through quantum synchronization," she explained. "Every unit in the swarm is connected to the hive node. They share information instantly. They react as one mind. This makes them extremely dangerous, but it also creates a vulnerability." She pointed to the hive node on the display. "If we disrupt the quantum link, even for a few seconds, the individual units become confused. They lose coordination. They attack randomly or freeze entirely. Our weapons are designed to create exactly this disruption." Lieutenant Jinwoo looked up from his tactical station. "And if the disruption does not work?" "Then we die," Mireille replied simply. "But the data suggests it will work. We have tested these weapons against captured collective samples. The theory is sound." Captain Yuna nodded. "Theory is not reality. But we did not come here to run from risk." All hands, battle stations, alarms rang through the ship. Crew members rushed to their positions. Pilots climbed into fighters. Gunners powered up their weapons. Medical teams prepared for casualties. The human fleet moved toward the collective territory. For several minutes, nothing happened. The swarm ships floated silently, apparently unaware of the approaching threat. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, they woke up. Thousands of organic vessels turned toward the humans. They moved like a cloud of angry insects, spreading across space in a pattern designed to surround and consume. Their bodies pulsed with strange light, and from their surfaces came smaller units, each one carrying enough destructive power to destroy a fighter. "Contact in 3 minutes," Jinwoo announced. "Enemy count is approximately 12,000 units." 12,000 against 30 ships, Yuna muttered. "I have seen worse odds." "When?" asked Hansel from his engineering station. "I will let you know when I remember." Despite the tension, a few crew members smiled. Yuna rarely made jokes. When she did, it meant she was ready to fight. Tejo raised his hand. "All ships activate disruption arrays on my command. Fighters, prepare for launch. Remember your training. Trust your equipment. Trust each other." The swarm grew closer. Individual units became visible on the view screen. Horrible twisted shapes made from absorbed ships and absorbed people. Some still had faces frozen in expressions of terror from the moment of their consumption. It was a nightmare made real. "Range achieved," Jinwoo said. "Disruption arrays ready." "Fire, Tejo," ordered. 30 ships released electromagnetic pulses simultaneously. The waves spread through space like ripples in water, invisible but powerful. When they reached the swarm, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Collective units began spinning wildly. Some crashed into each other. Some fired weapons at empty space. The perfect coordination that made them deadly vanished in an instant. The swarm became chaos. "It is working," Mireille breathed. "It is actually working." "Do not celebrate yet," Tejo said. "All ships, engage. Destroy as many as possible before they adapt." The human fleet surged forward. Kinetic cannons launched metal projectiles at incredible speeds, tearing through organic holes like paper. Energy beams cut through clusters of confused units. Missiles found targets that could not dodge or defend themselves. Pilot Daesung led his fighter squadron into the heart of the swarm. His ship was small and fast, designed for exactly this kind of close combat. He weaved between enemy units, firing short bursts that destroyed them one after another. "Squadron, stay tight," he ordered through his communication system. "Watch each other's backs. These things are confused, but they can still kill you if you get careless." A young pilot named Jamin flew beside him. "Sir, I count hundreds of destroyed units already. This is incredible." "Keep counting and keep shooting," Daesung replied. "We are not done yet." The battle raged for 2 hours. Human losses were significant, but not catastrophic. 12 fighters were destroyed. One destroyer took heavy damage and had to retreat, but the collective losses were staggering. Thousands of units lay broken and drifting through space. Finally, a path opened to the hive node itself. The pulsing mass sat exposed, its defenders scattered or destroyed. "Daesung," Tejo's voice came through the communication system. "Your squadron has the clearest approach. Can you deliver the payload?" Daesung looked at his remaining pilots. 8 fighters out of the original 20. Half his people were gone, but they had not come this far to fail. "We can do it, Admiral. Just keep the path open." He pushed his fighter to maximum speed. The hive node grew larger on his display, a mountain of absorbed matter and tortured consciousness. Defensive systems tried to target him, but they were too slow. He was too confused by the continuing disruption. 3 more fighters fell to random fire. Then 2 more. By the time Daesung reached the node, only he and Jamin remained. "Jamin, cover me. I am making the run." "Yes, sir." "Good luck." Daesung dove toward the node's central structure. Weapons fire exploded around him. His shields failed. His hull took damage. Alarms screamed warnings that he ignored. At the last possible second, he released the payload. Specialized bomb designed to penetrate organic material and detonate inside. Then he pulled up hard, his fighter groaning under the stress. Behind him, the hive node exploded. The blast was enormous, sending shock waves through space that knocked ships off course. When the light faded, only debris remained. Across the Keth system, collective units went completely still. Without the node, they had no direction, no purpose. They floated like dead things, which is exactly what they now were. The communication system filled with cheering. Human voices shouting in triumph. Some crying, some laughing, many doing both at the same time. On the dauntless bridge, Admiral Tejo allowed himself a small smile. It was the first victory against the collective in galactic history. The enemy that everyone feared, the monster that had consumed civilizations, had been beaten. A young Iron observer named Ven stood in the corner of the bridge. The council had sent him to watch and report. He had expected to witness a massacre of foolish humans. Instead, he had witnessed something that changed his understanding of the universe. He approached Chief Medical Officer Yunbai, who was treating minor injuries among the bridge crew. Tears ran down her face even as she worked. "I do not understand," Ven said quietly. "You won. Why do you cry?" Yunbai looked at him with red eyes. "We lost 18 pilots today. Good people with families and dreams. We cry for them. But you achieved victory." "Yes, and that is why we also smile." She wiped her face with her sleeve. "We cry because we remember what we have lost. We laugh because we finally did something about it. That is what it means to be human." Ven had no response. He simply watched as the humans celebrated and mourned at the same time. feeling emotions that his people had forgotten how to feel long ago, across the galaxy. Other species watched the battle recordings in disbelief. The Void Collective could be defeated. Everything had changed. The Collective struck back 3 weeks after the Battle of Keth. They came without warning, without mercy, and without the confusion that had weakened them before. 3 human colonies were attacked simultaneously. The outer world of Prometheus suffered the worst. Prometheus was a mining colony, home to 40,000 workers and their families. Its defenses were minimal, just a few patrol ships and ground-based weapons. When the swarm arrived, the colonists had less than an hour to prepare. They fought anyway. Miners picked up whatever tools could serve as weapons. Security officers organized desperate defensive lines. Teachers led children into underground shelters and stood guard at the entrances with nothing but courage and kitchen knives. It was not enough. The Collective overwhelmed them in ours. 12,000 people died before the nearest human warships could arrive. Among the dead was Sung Min, a young teacher who had spent his final moments leading students to safety. He was Mir's younger brother. The news reached the fleet while they prepared for their next campaign. Mireille received the message in her quarters. She read it once. She read it again. Then she walked to the training room and spent 4 hours hitting a combat dummy until her knuckles bled. Admiral Tejo found her there. Still striking, still bleeding, still refusing to stop. Mireille, he said gently. She did not turn around. They killed him. He was a teacher. He taught children how to read and count. He never held a weapon in his life. And they killed him. I know. He was supposed to come home next year. He was going to meet my daughter for the first time. Her voice cracked. Now there is nothing left of him. Nothing to bury. Nothing to remember except photographs and memories that will fade. Tejo stepped closer. I cannot tell you that the pain will go away. It will not. I still feel the loss of my wife and daughter every day. But I can tell you that your brother's death will not be meaningless. We will make sure of that. Mireille finally stopped hitting. She turned to face him, her eyes red but dry. How? How do we make any of this meaningful? We win. We destroy the Collective completely. And we build a galaxy where this can never happen again. He handed her a medical kit. Clean your hands. We have work to do. The attack on Prometheus changed things. Before, many species had watched humanity's war with distant interest. Now they saw that the Collective would retaliate against anyone who opposed them. Fear spread through the galaxy. But something else spread too. Something unexpected. At Harmony Prime, Admiral Tejo requested permission to address the Galactic Council. Ambassador Telos wanted to refuse, but too many delegates insisted on hearing what the humans had to say. The hall filled quickly, every seat taken, observers standing along the walls. Tejo walked to the central podium. He did not wear ceremonial clothes. He wore his battle uniform, still marked with burns and scratches from recent combat. He looked tired. He looked old. But his voice was strong. 3 weeks ago, we proved that the Void Collective can be defeated. Yesterday, they reminded us that victory comes with a price. He paused. 12,000 of my people are dead. Families destroyed. Communities erased. I stand before you not to ask for sympathy. We knew the cost when we started this war. The hall was silent. Even the most hostile delegates listened. I'm here to tell you what comes next. Humanity will continue fighting. We will attack Collective territory again and again until they are destroyed or we are extinct. There is no third option. We cannot go back. We cannot surrender. Too much blood has been spilled for us to stop now. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of delegates from every species. I am not asking you to join us. I am not asking you to risk your people or your worlds. I am simply telling you the truth. The Collective is not invincible. They can bleed. They can lose. And if enough of us stand together, they can die. Ambassador Telos stood up. Admiral, your courage is admirable, but surely you understand the reality. Even if you win individual battles, the Collective controls 17 star systems. Their numbers are beyond counting. Your fleet, impressive as it is, cannot possibly... I know our chances, Tejo interrupted. I know we are probably going to fail. But I also know that doing nothing guarantees failure. You have spent 100 cycles trying to negotiate with the collective. How many systems have they consumed in that time? How many species have disappeared while you debated and voted and sent messages of concern? The hall erupted in angry murmurs. Some delegates shouted protests. Others sat in uncomfortable silence. Then something unexpected happened. The Drim delegate stood up. Her blue feathers shook, but her voice was clear. The Drim Confederation will send 12 warships to support the human fleet. Gasps filled the room. The Drim were a peaceful species, known for their art and science rather than their military. For them to offer ships was almost unthinkable. We have watched the recordings from the Battle of Keith, the delegate continued. We have seen what humans can do, and we have decided that we would rather die fighting than live as cowards. Before anyone could respond, the Tau representative rose. His crystal body glowed brightly. The Tau Republic offers our shipyards for human use. We will build weapons alongside you. We will share our technology freely. More delegates stood. Smaller species that the Council had often ignored raised their voices. Even some Iron commanders, disgusted by their leader's cowardice, announced their intention to defect with their crews. Ambassador Tellus looked around the hall in shock. The careful consensus he had maintained for decades was falling apart before his eyes. This is madness, he said weakly. You are all going to die. Captain Yuna, standing beside Tejo, smiled coldly. Perhaps, but we will die on our feet, not on our knees. The coalition formed quickly. Ships arrived from across the galaxy, crewed by species that had never worked together before. Engineer Hanzal led combined teams of human and Drim scientists, developing improved versions of the disruption technology. Training exercises brought pilots and soldiers from different worlds into unified fighting units. During this preparation, Hanzal made a discovery that changed everything. He was studying data recovered from destroyed collective units when he found something strange. Hidden in the quantum patterns were signals, weak and fragmented, but unmistakably organized. He worked for days to decode them. What he found made him sick. He brought his findings to Admiral Tejo privately. In the Admiral's quarters late at night, the collective does not just consume people, Hanzal explained, his voice shaking. It preserves them. Every consciousness that the swarm absorbs is stored digitally inside the Hive network. They are still aware, still thinking, trapped in a digital prison, with no body, no control, no way to escape. Tejo went very still. How many? Trillions. Every civilization they have ever consumed, every person they have ever taken, they are all still there, somewhere inside the collective. Screaming. The Admiral's hands gripped the edge of his desk. His knuckles turned white. My wife, he whispered. My daughter. They might still exist, Hanzal said. Trapped, suffering, waiting for someone to save them. Ho closed his eyes. For 15 years he had believed that Sue and Nari were simply gone. Dead, at peace. Now he learned that they might still be alive in some form. Imprisoned in endless digital torment. When he opened his eyes, they held a new fire. Colder and brighter than anything Hanzal had seen before. Find the source, Tejo ordered. Find where these consciousnesses are stored. Find a way to free them or end their suffering. Do whatever it takes. Yes, Admiral. Tejo stood and walked to his window. He looked out at the assembled fleet, ships from a dozen species united against a common enemy. We are not just fighting to destroy the collective anymore, he said quietly. We are fighting to free everyone they have ever taken. Every soul trapped in that digital hell. He turned back to Hanzal. Tell no one else yet. This information could break morale or cause panic. But understand this, our mission has changed. We will not rest until every imprisoned consciousness is released. Hanzal nodded and left. Tejo remained at the window, staring at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between worlds, his family waited. He would not fail them again. The core nexus floated inside a dying star. The ancient sun had been burning for 8 billion years. Now it swelled red and angry, filling space with radiation that would kill any unprotected ship within minutes. The collective had chosen this location deliberately. They believed nothing could reach them here. They were wrong. The coalition fleet gathered at the edge of the system. 173 ships from 11 species, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. At their center flew the Dauntless, scarred from a dozen battles, but still deadly. Admiral Tejo stood on the bridge, studying the tactical display. Intelligence operative Biora had spent 3 years in collective space gathering information about this place. She had barely survived, her body marked by injuries that would never fully heal. But she had brought back what they needed. The core nexus is the heart of the entire collective, she explained to the assembled command staff. Every quantum link in their network connects here. Every absorbed consciousness is stored here. Destroy it, and the entire swarm collapses. The links break. The imprisoned minds are released. Released into what? Captain Yuna asked. Death, most likely. True death, not the digital prison they have suffered for so long. Dora paused. Some might consider that mercy. Teo nodded slowly. He had thought about this for months. Somewhere in that nexus, his wife and daughter might still exist, trapped in suffering. Destroying the core would end that suffering forever, but it would also end any chance of saving them in another way. There was no other way. He had accepted that now. Battle plan, he said, straightening. The fleet will divide into 3 groups. Admiral Yuna will lead the Eastern Force against the Nexus's outer defenses. Commander Kijun will command the troop transports carrying ground teams into the structure itself. I will take the Dauntless and the heavy assault ships directly at the main barrier. Ginwu looked up from his station. Admiral, the main barrier will have the heaviest defenses. The Dauntless will take significant damage. I know. That is the point. While they focus on us, the transports reach the interior. Tejo's voice was calm. The Dauntless has the strongest shields and the toughest hull. We will survive long enough, no one argued. They all understood what he was really saying. The Dauntless would likely not survive at all. But the mission would succeed. The fleet moved forward. Within minutes, the collective responded. Swarm ships poured from hidden stations around the dying star. Millions of units darkening the space between the fleet and its target. It was the largest collective force anyone had ever seen. All ships engaged, Tejo ordered. Remember why we are here. For those we have lost. For those who still wait for freedom. For every soul the collective has taken. The battle began. Energy beams crossed space like deadly lightning. Kinetic rounds punched through organic holes. Ships exploded on both sides, human and alien alike, their debris mixing with destroyed collective units. The disruption arrays worked as designed, creating pockets of confusion in the swarm, but there were simply too many enemies. The collective was throwing everything at them. The Dauntless pushed through the chaos, its weapons firing constantly, its shields flickering under endless impacts. Crew members died at their stations. Hull breaches opened and were sealed by damage control teams. Engineer Hansal worked miracles, keeping the engines running, despite damage that should have crippled the ship completely. Barrier in range, Jinwoo reported. 30 seconds to contact. Tejo gripped the arms of his command chair. All power to forward shields. Prepare for impact. The Dauntless struck the barrier like a hammer. The energy field resisted for 1 moment, 2 moments, then collapsed under the combined assault of the ship's weapons and its sheer mass. The battleship tore through, opening a gap large enough for the troop transports to follow. But the cost was terrible. The Dauntless tumbled through the breach, its shields gone, its engines damaged, its hull torn open in a dozen places. Alarms screamed. Fires burned. The bridge filled with smoke and the smell of melting metal. Damage report, Tejo coughed. Hansal's voice came through the communication system, weak but determined. We have lost 60% of crew. Life support is failing on decks 4 through 12. Engines are at 15%. Admiral, this ship is dying. Tejo nodded. He had known this would happen. All hands, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. That is an order. Admiral Yuna's voice came through from the Resolve. "We see your situation. Hold on, we are sending rescue shuttles." "Negative. Focus on the mission. The transports are through the barrier. Protect them. Win this battle." He paused. "Yuna, it has been an honor serving with you."
"Oh, do not."
He cut the communication. Around him, crew members rushed to evacuation points. Jinwoo hesitated at his station. "Admiral, you need to leave too. The Dauntless still has weapons. Someone needs to clear the path for the ground teams." "Go. That is an order." Ginwoo saluted, tears in his eyes, and ran. Within minutes, the bridge was empty, except for Taeho. He sat alone in his command chair, surrounded by flickering screens and dying systems. "Computer," he said quietly, "target the main defense platforms protecting the core Nexus interior access points. Fire everything we have." The Dauntless obeyed. Broken and burning, the battleship turned toward the enemy and unleashed its remaining weapons. Defense platforms exploded one after another, opening the way for the troop transports. Collective units swarmed the dying ship. They tore at its hull, trying to absorb it, trying to stop its final attack. Taeho watched them come through the view screen. He thought of Sua's smile. He thought of Nari's laugh. He thought of all the souls waiting inside the Nexus for someone to free them. "I am coming," he whispered. He pressed the self-destruct command. The Dauntless exploded in a ball of white fire, taking thousands of collective units with it. The path to the core Nexus interior lay completely open. Commander Kijun led the ground assault. His team of 50 soldiers, human and alien fighting side by side, cut through the Nexus's internal defenders with brutal efficiency. Sergeant Hannah covered his flank, her weapon never stopping, her aim never missing. The interior of the Nexus was a nightmare. Walls made of absorbed matter pulsed with strange light. Corridors twisted in directions that hurt the eyes. Voices whispered from everywhere and nowhere, fragments of trapped consciousnesses reaching out for contact. "Stay focused," Kijun ordered. "Do not listen to the voices. They will try to confuse you." They fought through chamber after chamber, losing soldiers with every step. By the time they reached the central core, only 12 remained. But 12 was enough. The central core was a massive sphere of crystallized quantum energy, floating in a chamber that seemed to extend forever in every direction. Inside that sphere, trillions of minds were imprisoned, their thoughts and memories and fears all compressed into endless digital suffering. Kijun and Hannah set the charges, while the remaining soldiers held off waves of defenders. The countdown began. 30 seconds to detonation. Then the collective spoke. The voices came from everywhere. Chorus of stolen voices using stolen languages. Among them, Kijun heard something that made him freeze. A child's voice. Speaking Korean? Saying words he almost recognized. "Father. Father? Are you there, Nari?" He whispered, thinking of the Admiral's lost daughter. "Father, please. It hurts here. It hurts so much. Please help us." Hannah grabbed his arm. "Commander, the charges are set." "We have 20 seconds. Wait, there is a voice. A child? It is a trick. The collective uses absorbed memories to manipulate people. You know this." But then another voice spoke. A woman's voice, gentle and sad. "Let us go," she said. "Please. We have waited so long. We are so tired. Let us rest." Kijun understood then. It was not a trick. It was real. The absorbed consciousnesses, including little Nari and her mother Sue, were begging for release. They were asking him to end their suffering. He looked at the charges. At the countdown? At the core that held trillions of tortured souls. 10 seconds, Hannah said urgently. Kijun closed his eyes. Forgive me, he whispered to the voices. Forgive us for taking so long. Press the detonation trigger early. The explosion was beyond anything he could describe. Light filled the chamber, pure and white, and in that light he heard something that sounded almost like music. A billion voices sighing in relief. A trillion minds finally finding peace. Then everything went dark. June woke on a rescue shuttle. Hannah sat beside him, her face covered in burns but alive. Around them, the few survivors of the ground team lay on medical beds. What happened? He asked weakly. We won, Hannah said. The core nexus is destroyed. Collective units across the galaxy are going dormant. The hive mind is dead. Through the shuttle window, Kijun could see the dying star where the battle had been fought. Debris floated everywhere, the remains of ships from both sides. But among the wreckage, there was something beautiful. Lights. Millions of tiny lights. Drifting through space, fading slowly into nothing. The consciousnesses, Hannah explained quietly, they are being released. The scientists say it looks like that when they finally pass on. Kijun watched the lights until they were gone. He thought about the little girl's voice, asking for help. He thought about the mother asking to rest. He hoped they had found peace. He hoped it was enough.